we are here with Dr. Paula Allotta and Karen Paul for the first episode of season 2 of Creating a Disruption. So thank you so much for agreeing to be on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
And also congratulations on winning the Bessie Award this year. It's a great accomplishment. So we'll begin with sort of the theme of the podcast is disruption. How have you disrupted your class, either by creating a new assignment or a project, using new technology, or a different approach in the classroom? Why did you make the change? How did it go?
Well, I think, I don't know if it's any major change, I guess, that I think that the reason my class is successful is like a lot of little changes maybe that over time kind of build up. So I think when I started teaching chemistry, I just taught chemistry the way I would like to be taught chemistry, which of course isn't everybody's learning style, but I made a lot of resources that would have helped me when I was teaching chemistry or when I was taking chemistry. So I would like a lot of problems with all the answers because I personally would like to do the problems and see if I got them right away. So that's what I did. I made those resources and students, some of them used them and some of them didn't use them. And then I just sort of went from there and I looked at other types of students and what students that weren't using that, what might they use, and just try to keep adding resources. So now I feel like my class is full of a ton of different resources and I'm sure nobody's using all of them, but some students like to have a guided like an outline when they're reading the chapter with questions that they can fill in. And then some students I know don't even download that. Mostly I think I've made a lot of lecture videos and students, my classes are mostly blended or online. So they were mostly learning from lecture videos. And then as I made the lecture videos, I realized maybe they would like more problems on videos. And then I made more, just more videos that were addressing the things that maybe I missed the first time. And so I think that is taking student feedback and trying to run with it, I think is the way that I've tried to slowly over time improve my class as much as I can so every student can find it helpful. So every student has a chance to succeed, no matter what their learning type is, or even I think how much time they have to dedicate. They just have to find the thing that works for them. They might not be as hard as they think.
So you have all those resources available, but they're not all required.
Right, so they do have required homework. But besides that, everything is pretty much optional. And so students, like I said, some students I know do everything. I mean, in some of the chapters, I have hours of practice problems and students find mistakes in the answer keys. So I know people are out there doing them, but other students I know don't even open it. And that might be okay for them. Maybe they don't want care about as high of a grade. They just want to pass the class. That happens. Or maybe they're just good at the material and they don't really need practice of that, but they're available if they want them.
So is it considered to the students as practice problems or is it categorized under extra credit?
Okay, so I do have extra credit also.
Okay.
So that's just a few problems and that's worth a few points. Again, not every student does that either, right? You'd think that one would be the sure thing. There's 3 problems per chapter, 1 point per chapter. We do 11 chapters. So it's one homework assignment basically. They could get one free, but not everybody does that. But so there's practice problems that they have the answers to. And then there's just a few shorter problems. I have everything you can do, but it's not required. So they just have all the resources and they're all the same. That's one thing that as a faculty member that gets busy, sometimes you start something and then by the 3rd chapter, 4th chapter, 5th chapter, you're like, is anyone using this? Do I have to keep doing it? But I've really focused in on making every single chapter consistent so they all have the same resources. So if you are relying on a certain resource, it will be available for all the chapters. It doesn't just stop. Because that's how sometimes I would find out that students used it. Somebody would be like, there's no reading guide for chapter 7. And I'm like, oh yeah, didn't finish those yet. So
no, I've been in that boat.
The
same thing, because I divide my, especially online classes into levels. And I have sort of extra credit, very similar, just extra things for students to look at. And then running out of steam. And so the later levels, people are like, oh, where's the skeletal outline for the lecture video? In my mind.
Yeah,
I didn't get
on my
there yet. I'm sorry.
List.
So finally getting to a point where I'm like, I think I have everything I need.
Yeah.
And for me, again, some of it is also extra credit, but I also find it interesting. Some students always jump right to the extra credit without doing the main work.
Yep.
So now in Blackboard, I don't have the extra credit appear until they submit the main assignment. Because I never quite understood that they would go right to the extra credit for an extra few points.
Yep.
That's cool.
Because it starts you off on like a high note, right?
Yeah,
You
yes.
already got your extra credit and
I got this extra credit, I feel good.
Yeah, it's interesting because I often hear like at the college, like this kind of like concept of like students don't do optional, right? And that's like this blanket statement that gets applied to a lot of different areas or whatever, but like sometimes they do optional.
Yes.
And
It depends on the student, right?
right, yeah, it depends on the level and what they need and whether it's like additional like practice problems or whatever, like it's up to them to decide to opt in. And so I feel like I hear this blanket statement all the time.
Yeah.
Students.
I think about how I was as a student, and I was really good at chemistry. So I would have been annoyed if I had to go through hours of homework just to get points for something that I already understood. That like the point was to understand it. So I try to keep it to a minimum of like what's required. Here, this is what I think you need to do to be successful. I think you should watch the lecture videos. You have to do the homework. That's it. But if that's not enough for you, here's all the options of things that you can do, and then each student can pick like what they think is helpful for them and like how much extra things they need. And it works for a lot of students. Now some students aren't good at managing their time or managing their expectations of like how good they're gonna do, and so required might work better for them, or they might still not do it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But for the students that want to succeed, I feel like all the resources are there. They just gotta find which ones work for them.
Especially if they have like a clear goal, like for whatever their end goal is.
Yeah.
So, I really need to know this, recognize that I might not be as strong in some areas. Going, okay, I'm glad there's these extra resources.
And I teach general chemistry, which in the chemistry, there's introductory chemistry first and then general chemistry. And so most of these students are going on, like a lot of them are returning, they want to go to medical school or they want to go to PA school. Like, you know, they know that chemistry is going to be important and that they've got more chemistry coming up. So I do have that benefit that I know not all faculty get, where students like see the value, they know why they're there and they know like what they need to do and that it's important that they understand it. So that's like, I feel like I'm already ahead of the game when I have that, you know,
Right.
level of buy-in from the students, because then they are willing to look at the resources and try to really understand it, because they know it's coming up again in Chem 2 and then it's coming up again in organic, and a lot of them are on that path.
Right, and they know that it is gonna be applicable in their life at some point.
Yes.
Like I remember being a student and taking chemistry, and I don't know which one it is, where you know, you're balancing equations and stuff like that. And I just remember like sitting there being like, is this really applicable to my life? Like, is this ever going to, like, I knew I wasn't going into health careers or anything
Yeah.
like that. And so, you know, and that was years and years and years ago, but like, if you have that kind of like tangible real world, like, I know I'm gonna need this and this is gonna come up in whatever program I'm going into, right? Like, there's a solid investment
Yes.
there at that point, you know? So I'm interested to know, like, you talked about like small changes over time, right, that you made to these classes and the resources, like, how long did it actually take to get your class to a place where you were like, okay, this is what I wanted? And I know that it changes.
Yeah, no, I
Good
think right
question,
now,
yeah.
my students, I pull my students a lot at the end of the semester and ask like for what advice they have, and I always look at it and think like, can I do any of, like, is this a realistic thing I can do? Sometimes it's not, make the test easier. Not, you know, not an option, but like, a couple of times recently it came up that they wanted more detailed, like chapter reviews, I guess. And so that's something that I'm doing this semester. So each week I teach them a chapter and then I go back to my office and I type up a chapter review with like a bullet point of like, I already had I thought, an outline of what they should know, and it would say things like balance equations, right? And so now I'm like, okay, maybe that's not enough for them. Know how to balance equations when you have this many, like when you're given products, or when you're, you know, if you don't know what the products will be, know how to predict the products, then know how to do this, like really break it down. So I would say it's still not always, like I still think there's things I can add, but I've been teaching since I started teaching in 2010, and I started making the practice problem worksheets that I still use. I just sort of adjust them when we change books or whatever. And I've just been adding resources, but I'd say the pandemic really accelerated, but I felt like I needed to add online because we were teaching completely online, which I had never done before. And so I wanted more resources for students. So I recorded a ton of videos, and then I was kind of in, like, I finished all the chapters and I was like, how do I do with all my energy? And so I kept making more practice video, you know, so I think probably the last like 5 years has been, a lot of the resources have been added, but it takes a long time.
You know?
It does. And it's interesting, like I just posted like a study guide for like, you know, 4 chapters for their exam. And I did what you did. I did bullet points of like, you know, the kind of like quick list of topics. And I found that they wanted to know way more specific.
Yes.
Way more in detail, and like you like to some extent, like some of the things, like some of the concepts you can go into a little bit more detail, because they're larger concepts that you want to break down and really have them focus on. But also at the same time, I'm like, if I put this definition down, like you should know what it is and you should know how to apply it. So I didn't realize that they wanted more. Like I feel like I'm always trying to keep it like short and sweet.
Yes,
but
yes,
like
yes.
sometimes they want more.
And so and I do have the short and sweet still posted, and now I also posted the long version, and so again, it's like whichever student you are, if seeing moles conversions is enough for you, great. But if you need that to say grams to moles, moles to grams, or moles to atoms, atoms to moles, like you need a list of all of what those conversions mean. I got that too now. You just kind of add it over time.
Well, it's all coming back to me now.
Yeah.
Wild. So what is one of the like the best teaching and learning experiences for you that you've had?
I don't know. Let's see. Teaching and learning experience that I've had. I prepared this answer. Give me a second here.
Or the best teaching advice you've ever received?
The best teaching advice I've ever received is silly, but someone told me to always erase the board up and down so you're not shaking your butt in the classroom. And that has stuck with me. I always erase the board up and down.
It's very practical.
It's very practical. Someone's like, you can't erase the board left and right. I'm like, why? Like, so you're shaking your butt. I'm like,
I never thought about that.
so there you go. Now that we're more classes coming back on campus, people can use that advice.
That is good advice.
Yeah.
Though a lot of the time we've gotten rid of most of our dry erase boards.
In chemistry, I'm still very reliant on
Yeah, that's good. Because I know when they did a lot of the tech updates, they put in the giant monitors. And
Oh yeah, we have
like
the
where's
monitors.
the
and
dry erase boards?
We
still have people go on.
I still got those. I got those on one side, and I got writing everywhere.
Now on the
class.
ATC equipment, like the giant things, can you erase side to side that way? Or no, you're still shaking?
On the screen,
Yeah.
usually I just go to the next slide. Yeah.
Clear it.
That one's
I
a
know,
little,
which
which
is
is kind of
kinda
nice.
nice.
Push.
Out of here.
Yeah, you're done. I'm done. But I still use my dry erase board a lot too. So.
I started teaching with chalkboards,
Oh,
and that was always
Yeah.
that was fun.
Yeah.
Really.
And then I would have
Messy.
teachers after me go, "You're leaving too much chalk dust." I'm like, but I don't know how to get rid of the chalk
Yeah, I don't
dust.
have a solution. Well, that is what I always do.
So I brought a
whiteboard.
vacuum.
Oh.
I'm just kidding.
I was gonna say, holy cow. When I erase the board, I always erase when I leave, but I always wonder if anybody else is gonna use it after me, because I think everybody just uses the screens. But chemistry, I gotta write a lot.
Yeah, I know with the monitors now, there's fewer people writing on the dry erase board, so you don't have that opportunity. Like before, I would walk in and the previous teacher wouldn't erase the
You
board.
could learn something,
You're like,
yeah.
oh, this is fascinating. Wonder what they were talking
What
about.
class was this? I always try to predict the math class. What
Yeah.
what was the math one? It's like algebra.
So we have your best teaching advice, which is very practical.
Very nice.
When you were in school, when you were a student, because you mentioned earlier that you sort of taught how you wanted to be taught as a student. Was there a moment or was there a good learning experience where you think back on now and go, that was a really good class. I really want to try to, I don't know, copy what that teacher did. in that
Yeah.
class.
I think so. When I was in graduate school, I went into physical chemistry, and I really liked my physical chemistry class, but it was very, very organized, and I like that. And clear expectations. I feel like those, any class I had that I knew what to expect each day, and I knew what my expectations of me were as a student. That was where I thrived. So I feel like that's always stuck with me in terms of. I don't like to change the syllabus ever, no changes to the schedule. I always put the schedule is subject to change, but I avoid that at all costs because I just like for students to know upfront,
Right.
this is what you're in for, and this is when this is gonna be due, and it's not gonna change, you're not gonna get an extension, it's not gonna be earlier, it's not gonna be anything, it's just this is it.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's one thing that I've been getting better at is creating clear goals, because I always felt like in English, especially as a student, you just go in there and the teacher's like, well, we're gonna talk about this today, which everyone was supposed to read.
Yeah,
Right? But going into and saying clearly to students, we're gonna cover this, this, and this. Though you still have students who sort of are checking it going down. I was like, oh my gosh, we're only 2 things through the agenda for today. Why can't we make this go faster?
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that I think over time I've learned to try to be better at. Was there anything else sort of since you've been teaching that you feel like, okay, I think I've really improved on these areas? You talked about sort of adding all the different additional content, but just as a teacher in general, like, do you feel like, I think I'm much better
Yeah, well,
at this
and
now?
this goes back to, again, like teaching how I would want to be taught, but like, I was good at chemistry and I was good at math, and I went into my first semester of teaching not expecting that everybody was good at chemistry, but like there was a math prerequisite for the course, and so I assumed everybody had certain math skills and I taught accordingly. And then I was talking to a student after, I don't know, the 3rd week or something, and the questions he was asking, the math questions, were not things I had covered. They were simple math questions, and I just thought, like, you don't know when the last time a student took a math class is. Just because they have that knowledge and they took that class, you're assuming that they're remembering things, and if that's what they're focusing on, they're not listening to you because they're trying to figure out what the math was. So I really scaled back. Like, I show the basic math. I said, remember, units cancel. If they're on top and bottom of a fraction bar, they cancel. Like, just that's simple math, and they all know it. But not every student remembers it on the first day. And so I think I've gotten a lot better at that. I think going back to the very basics and not assuming any student remembers anything from a previous semester, even in Chem 2, they're gonna have to know stuff from Chem 1. They're gonna have to. But just giving them a quick reminder of it really helps them feel more comfortable, and it helps them feel more comfortable that, like, asking questions, knowing I'm not gonna say, like I'm happy to explain old stuff again and things like that. So I think, I've gotten a lot better at that, like knowing just because they've taken the classes previously doesn't mean they remember it, and I'm not going to teach them again. That's not my job either, but reminding them real quick is a good use of everyone's time because they will catch on faster to what we're doing now. You just like get them on the same page.
Well, and like that could be, they could have taken that class 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago, 2 years ago, even longer,
Yes,
right? And so,
yes.
I think about like, I sometimes don't remember what I ate for breakfast like
Yes.
that morning, and like trying to kind of pull some of those like concepts like back to the forefront. I feel like that's like kind of a good way to meet students where they're at, right? And say like, here's where the course is saying that you should be at, or because you took that, that math prereq or whatever, but like I'm gonna meet you where you are and we'll get to there together.
And especially in Chem 2, I love to tell them where this was in Chem 1. So like, this is a 5-minute reminder of everything we did in chapter 7. I can't teach you chapter 7 again, but I would be happy to send you my videos from chapter 7 if you need that. And then I just go over a quick reminder, and for a lot of students that's enough, and then for some students they do need the chapter 7 videos and they don't remember it enough, and then they know where to find it so that they can do the deep dive back into it if they don't have that as fresh of recall. But for most students,
do you get a lot of students like back to back, like that take Chem 1 with you, then Chem 2, and like so you see their progression?
Yes.
Over the,
Yes.
Okay. Does it help kind of like strengthen the relationship with you? Like,
yeah, it's good to see them for multiple years, and it is always interesting. So like if I'm teaching Chem 1 in the fall, I expect I will see a lot of those students for Chem 2 in the spring, but there will be other students in there too, and it is always interesting to see what they like, how they learned things differently and what they're, but it is nice to see students like sometimes some of the other students don't remember something and my students do. I'm like, yeah, yay, but yeah, it's good. It's nice to see them for a whole year. I only teach usually the 2-semester sequence, so after that they move on to organic chemistry, and that's not my thing. So
You want to talk about just having sending videos of things that maybe they need refresher on. I don't know if there's any real silver lining to the pandemic, but one of them was creating all the videos because I was teaching developmental English courses, so I had to do a lot more videos with grammar stuff, which we don't really cover in intensive. But just having those available now.
Yes.
Like there's a folder, like if you want
yes.
just a review of, run-on sentences, here's content.
Yes.
Ignore that I say English 0990. Just, look at the content and it's there for them to use.
And it's, for me, my comfort level of making videos. So now like, sometimes students don't know how to put scientific notation into their calculator. It's a dumb reason to get a question wrong on an exam is because you didn't use your calculator right, but until somebody teaches you.
Right.
But I can't teach it always in the class because everybody's got a different calculator. They might not even have it with them that day. But now it's just like for me to make a quick video of how to put it in your calculator and put it up, and Then the people that aren't getting the right answer can, like, if you didn't get the right answer on this question, go watch that video and that will explain it, and it makes it a lot easier to reach certain students just for the things they need.
Yeah. It's also just really wild, the fact that as educators, we have to be able to create like some of this content.
Yes,
videos where,
Things
you know,
I skills
would
I
have
never
thought.
thought I would have, yeah.
Right. I mean, mine aren't really that spectacular, but as I tell the Clee, it gets the job done,
That's right.
I think.
Well, it's wild, like, that was 4 years ago,
You're right.
or 3 years ago, I'm like, it was 2020, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, I feel like, you know, you kind of maybe like go back and like look at, you know, some of those videos and some of the content, like what you look like, or the, like how things have changed a little bit, even, you know, 09, 90, like, you know, all those changes, and it's like a little time capsule.
We're gonna get a new textbook coming up, and so I'm sure that everything won't be in the same order, and so I'm planning to redo all my videos, and I'm actually looking forward to it. It's very hard to go watch old videos of yourself, like that's a hard thing to listen to and watch. But I mean, I made most of my lecture videos at like 4 o'clock in the morning while my family was sleeping, because there was no other time, you know, starting
Yes.
in the middle of the chapter, or in the middle of the semester. I did the second half of the semester, and then in the summer I did the first half, so they're like recorded out of order, and I'm like, I don't even know if I was making sense for some of them, but the students, I ask them, I'm always like, if you find this video that sounds like I was too groggy to be making a video, please tell me. I would
Yeah.
love to re-record that one, but I can't watch all of these and find it. They never do, so hopefully that means.
A lot of my online students have no idea what I really look like because my hair used to be shoulder length or longer.
Oh.
So I have some videos where long hair, short hair, then long hair again. So I'm just out there to confuse them.
Yeah, they don't know who
You're
you're
just trying to aliases.
Right. But it is so true during the pandemic. Like I was recording starting at 11 o'clock or later because the kids would be asleep.
Yep.
But then that's when the cats thought, this is amazing. So there were a lot of animals passing through for a lot of them.
I think in every video I made, I had to cut out when my son would wake up and say, Mommy, can I get up now? And I'm like, I'm sure I missed it in at least one of those videos.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a voice in there somewhere. Oh well.
Yeah, but there are also the times I rewatch some of them and you're right, it's difficult. Where you go, oh, and I'm just sort of like staring off for a moment. You're like, why didn't I edit that out? But I guess,
At
you
the
know,
time.
longing for the future.
Yeah.
But some of them are really great because I had extra time. So I had like, my son had a green screen.
Oh.
So that I had things, I was in front of a green screen, so like the slides were like behind me, and I'm like, wow, I put a lot of effort into that. Now it's just click record and go from there.
Yeah.
So we're gonna move into a new segment this season, which 4 questions. We're gonna ask you 4 questions. You can answer them quickly or you can expand on them, that's all right. But the first one is fact or fib. So we want you to tell us something interesting about you, but it could be a lie, and that's okay. So we'll start with that, and then after you answer that one, we'll go to the next one. So, fact or fib?
All
Give
right.
us something interesting about you, and Karen and I, at the end of the segment, will try to make a determination if you're telling us the truth or not.
All right. As a chemistry, I think this counts as about me. It's about my kids, but my kids dressed up as carbon dioxide for Halloween because they wanted to be something scary. Global warming. It's scary as it gets.
I feel like that's totally a fact.
I'm gonna think about that.
All right.
Favorite teacher and why? You can pick any point in your life.
Oh, I think my favorite teacher was a chemistry professor in college, and I think that's probably like part of what led me on my path. That she was like a young female chemist, and it's important, you know, like you see yourself and you're like, if she can do that, I probably can do that too. And so I really enjoyed her class. I took a couple classes with her and stuck with me forever. She had good teaching style, very personable, like made also, I assume all students, I don't know, made me feel welcome in the class.
Do you remember her name?
I do, Heather Holmes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've had a moment where I had like talked to somebody about this great teacher in college, and then I was like,
No, definitely.
so good, so good. Most embarrassing moment in the classroom.
This is from before I started at Tri-C, I worked in a college in Georgia, and I had a baby on April 3rd, and our semester ended like April 23rd or something. Anyway, he was only like 3 weeks old, and for a lot of long, boring reasons, I gave my final exams. Like I went on a short maternity leave and then I came back just to give my final exams. And I went in the classroom, these were students I'd had all semester, but they had a sub for 2 weeks. And they were like, one of the topics they did not understand from the sub. And they were like, can you just explain this one? I mean, something I've taught a million times. And I was like, what that means? I have no idea what you're talking about. I was like, if it's not a diaper change or like what time does the baby need to eat? I don't know. And so I was like, but I did figure it out. And I did answer the question before the final exam started. But it was very like, what business do I have here right now?
Right.
Where's my mind?
What am I doing here?
Last question. Did you find teaching or did teaching find you? So is teaching something you always wanted to do? Or did something happen and you're like, this is my path?
Yeah, no, I definitely always wanted to be a teacher. Whatever grade I was in, that's what grade I wanted to teach. Like, second grader, I was gonna be a second grade teacher. Even up to college, I went into college thinking I was gonna be a high school teacher. I fell in love with chemistry more than I expected to, and I decided if I just get a chemistry degree and then just went to graduate school, I could just teach chemistry without having to take the education classes that I would have had to take to be a high school teacher. 19 years old, and it's like, yeah, it'll be fine, I'll do that. But it worked out. But then I got to graduate school, which was, I went to a school, it wasn't a community college, but it was like Tri-C where faculty taught. That was, their job. And then I went to graduate school where faculty did research. And it was such a different environment. I was like, okay, that is not what I want to teach. That is not where I want to be a teacher. I want to go back to college like when I went to college. And so that's what I did. Here I am.
And we're happy that you're here.
Thank you.
So going back to Factor Fib, that does sound like.
I didn't want to make it too fact, so only one of my kids was carbon dioxide.
Oh.
That was the fib, one of my kids.
Okay.
But that was true.
But that is-
And it was all his idea.
Like carbon dioxide, like CO2, right?
Uh-huh.
But I was like trying to imagine like the little ones, like okay,
They could
like
both
what
be
would carbon
together.
be and what would oxygen be?
Yeah, he was 6 years old, so this was when he was in first grade, and he had carbon on his chest and oxygen on his hands, and nobody understood his costume at all, but he was happy to explain it to anybody. He was very, very concerned about global warming at that time, so it's like, this is scary. I'll be something scary.
I mean, that's amazing that he was like that attuned to it.
Yes.
Well, my mom's a chemistry teacher.
I know, I was like,
so.
yeah, what can I
What are you
do? I
gonna
gotta
do?
encourage this.
So what are their costumes this year?
This year, they're gonna be skeletons.
Oh, okay.
They're gonna do the spooky, scary skeleton. There's like a YouTube thing. I don't know. Anyway, they're gonna dance at everybody's house to try to get more candy. So they need
Oh.
matching skeleton costumes, and then they're gonna dance. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
If there's one thing they definitely have a shortage of at Halloween, it's usually candy. So anything to get more candy.
Nobody. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. Congratulations again on the Bessie. We do hope you have a wonderful remaining of the semester. Well, we can see why on the Bessie is your dedication to the students. So
Oh,
thank
thank
you
you.
so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.